Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Assembly Judiciary. Welcome to everyone here in Carson City, as well as those of you down in Las Vegas and anyone viewing through Nellis or our YouTube channel on our legislative YouTube. With that, Committee Secretary, please take the roll.
Assembly members Cole, here. Dahlia, here. Gonzalez, here. Gray, here. Hanson, here. Hardy, here. LaRue Hatch, here. Marzola, present. Moore, Nadeem, present. Orient Liquor, here. Roth, here. Urick, here. Chair Miller.
Here, and please mark Assembly Member Moore present when she arrives. With that, just a few reminders. Please make sure that you turn down your electronics so not to disrupt any of the work going on today. I will provide the phone number for those who will be testifying or offering public comment through the telephone. The phone number is 888-475-4499, and today's meeting ID is Today's meeting ID is 829-893-52930. Again, we ask that anyone making public comment or testifying on a bill, please make sure to keep your comments to 2 minutes. And anyone presenting a bill, we ask that your presentation stays around 15 minutes. Anyone speaking, we ask that you first state your name, and the first time you state your name, you spell it so that we have it accurate for the record. And with that, I think we're ready to begin. We all know the routine of respect and courtesy in here. I will be taking the bills out of order, so I will actually begin with Assembly Bill 504, which establishes certain deceptive trade practices relating to the sale of and or an offer to sell certain hemp products. So, Assembly Member, do you have any co-presenters or? I do not. Okay, so whenever, I'll give you a few minutes to get settled, and whenever you are ready, introduce yourself and proceed. And we appreciate your new haircut. Looks very sharp.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Vice Chair Marzola, and thank you, esteemed members of the best committee in the building. For the record, Assembly Member Joe Dahlia, Joedalia, representing Assembly District 29, here today to present Assembly Bill 504 on behalf of Speaker Yeager. I am the lone presenter today, but I do have two phone friends that have made themselves available for questions today. Jimmy Hum of the Cannabis Compliance Board here in Carson City, and Lake Martin, the Executive Director of the Nevada Cannabis Association in Las Vegas. This bill is about deceptive trade practices in the cannabis industry, protecting consumers, our tourism industry, and our licensed cannabis dispensaries. The starting point for this bill is that since 2019, there has been a 1,500-foot setback around our gaming and resorts corridors where cannabis dispensaries are not permitted to operate. While our legal cannabis industry respects this setback, certain predatory actors have taken advantage of it by operating hemp shops that intentionally mislead consumers into thinking they are offering the real thing. This is a significant problem around both the Strip and Fremont Street. Many of these shops put on a convincing performance to appear like a dispensary, including by presenting hemp leaves in the window, by selling hemp buds that appear and smell indistinguishable from cannabis. They also sell gummies, cartridges, and other products whose packages show smiling faces, eating, and vaping their products. Some even employ aggressive staff that will stand in front of their shops and tell people that that's the right place to get high. So, in reality, the CBD and hemp products that these shops carry are not only unlikely to result in an enjoyable experience for the consumer, they're very unlikely to have been tested for safety. So, they may contain synthetic marijuana, pesticides, and other harmful ingredients. For tourists that come to Las Vegas from states where cannabis is still outlawed, if this is their first experience with marijuana, they're very unlikely to feel like they got a good deal. They're very likely to feel scammed. And that's not the experience we want to give to the people that patronize our state. We owe these visitors to our state an obligation to protect them from predatory actors. We also owe an obligation to our legal dispensaries to protect them because they may be suffering customer losses by virtue of these consumers being redirected to fake dispensaries. With that background, I'll briefly turn to the bill language. I will not say that this is a certain S word, but I will say it's not very lengthy and not very complex. It's one section. Subsection 1A requires certain signage to be posted indicating that this location is not a cannabis cannabis establishment license, does not hold a cannabis establishment license. My apologies, it's Monday. And the second subsection B prohibits false advertising about the nature of the location or the products. Subsection 2 provides that these are not exclusive remedies and penalties. Subsection 3 indicates that these are deceptive trade practices for purposes of NRS 598.0903 to 598.0999 inclusive. And Section 4 sets forth certain definitions. We also do have 2 amendments. My apologies, the second was late breaking. The first is from the Cannabis Compliance Board, really just tightening up the types of deceptive trade practices we're seeing around the nature of the products to help with the enforcement piece. The second provides that the applicable regulatory body will be able to set forth the dimensions, font size, color contrast, and exact language for the signage required to indicate that this is not a licensed dispensary. And with that, I have walked through the bill and the 2 amendments, so I will open up to questions.
Thank you so much for that. I will give members just a few minutes to populate if they're requesting a question. First question will be from Assemblymember LaRue Hatch.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for answering our questions this morning. So my question is just, I know you don't have the details of what the sign will say, but just what is envisioned here? Are you imagining that these shops can't have like marijuana leaves posted around? They'll have to have a sign that says we don't actually sell X, Y, and Z here. Like, what is the overall effect going to be on these shops?
Right. Assemblymember Joe Daly for the record. Chair, can I go direct? Thank you. I think that we don't want to set that standard for the regulatory body. We wanted to be intentional about making sure they set that. But I do think that we want the character and feel of the establishment to not indicate that this is a dispensary. Because right now, this has been carefully coordinated to appear like a dispensary in every form and fashion. So I think that the sign, we want it to be understandable to consumers. We want it to be clearly legible. And we want it to indicate that this is not a true dispensary, but I do not want to speak for the regulatory body because I know we did want intentionally to have that be in their jurisdiction.
Assemblymember Cole?
Thank you very much. I appreciate you, and thank you, Chair. Appreciate you attempting to protect our real market and our real people who are doing good things for us. My question has to do with enforcement and how do customers know about this? Is there going to be an advertising program like at the airport to let people know if you don't see, if you don't see a sign like this, then you're not in the right place, that kind of thing. But who would also do the enforcement?
Sure. I think that might be a good place for me to phone a friend. Jimmy
Thank you, Chair. Do you mind if I go direct? Thank you. Thank you, Assemblymember, for the question. So in contemplating this and then kind of as we reviewed this, enforcement would actually come through the Bureau of Consumer Protection under Chapter 598 as written. However, what we've started to do, and I think I brought that forward in front of this committee, is we have worked with local licensing departments at the city and the county level. So our intention would be to also partner with the Attorney General's office on this. When we would get complaints or reports, we would go directly to the AG's office and their wonderful investigators. Thank you.
Did you state your name and spell it?
James Hum, JamesHumm, Executive Director, Cannabis Compliance Board. Thank you.
Thank you, and I'm going to ask you to stay there for a moment. If you could just share with us how big of an issue or a problem is this for our industry, and if you want to maybe explain like the impact, whether it's on our the Gaming Resorts Association or grouping the the cannabis industry, just whatever types of impact, financial impact it is having on our community.
Thank you for the question, Chair. James Hum, Cannabis Compliance Board. So it's kind of multi-pronged, right? So when you look at it, these products aren't taxed at the same rate that our legal cannabis is taxed at, as well as our licensees have invested a lot of time, energy, money into what they do. And in this particular case, to go back to what Assemblymember Dahlia had stated, some of these things aren't tested as well, so there's a health and safety component. So there's a lot of different aspects to this, of the importance of that. And as to the exact number, it would be really difficult to give you a full, accurate, 100% accurate number. We do get complaints on this, have recognized that it is an issue, which is why our enforcement division is out working with the localities. Right now, it's just the business licenses that we're able to kind of enforce through. And again, it's not even our direct enforcement. This wouldn't be direct enforcement either, but this would give us another tool to work with the Attorney General's office under those consumer protection statutes. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you so much. Our next question is from Assemblymember Hanson.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for being here. And I have a question regarding the amendment from the Cannabis Compliance Board. In Section 1B sub 2, in the green language, the very end, that they must not advertise, but not limited to, any claims that the hemp product has beneficial health effects. I'm just curious why that. I mean, there are claims that hemp seeds in particular are beneficial, so I'm extremely naive when it comes to what's going on and how this is playing out. Are we talking about some stores that might have the hemp seeds, that sort of thing?
Absolutely. Thank you for the question, and honestly, happy to amend that out as well. Our initial concern was just to make any claims that weren't fully vetted, tested, that came directly from the FDA. Again, we still are in the gray area with at the federal level, so that was our main concern. Again, happy to stop at products have any beneficial health effects. I think the first two portions of our amendment certainly can get that done. So I'll work with the Assembly member on whatever him and the Speaker would like to do, but we're certainly happy to discuss that further.
Thank you. Thank you for that. And, I'm not a consumer of hemp seeds but I just look at some other claims that are made when we go and buy supplements, and I would want to maybe be consistent. There might not be some FDA studies or permissions per se, but just thinking if we could, I like the idea maybe not putting that in there, just because it seems like consistency would dictate that when we have other supplements that we have being sold. So, but I'll leave that to you guys to discuss. Thank you.
James Hum, Cannabis Compliance Board. Just a reminder, we are actually neutral on this bill. This was brought forward by Assemblymember Dahlia and the Speaker, so happy to continue to work with them on what, if any, adjustments they'd like to make. Thank you.
Thank you so much for, again, declaring your neutrality. But with that, and along with what my colleague was asking, so right now with hemp products, because we know that there are hemp products that are sold for medicinal uses, whether it's a lotion, a pill, whatever. Do they, I guess my question is to the store, to these stores that we are going after, because I know you can purchase those products in other stores. It doesn't have to just be at a hemp shop, for lack of a better term. So in these stores, are they also selling those medicinal products, or are these more, I hate to use slang, but are these just more shops that are just using, selling pipes and vapes and hemp and not necessarily the lotions and the medicine and the other things?
James Hum, for the record. Again, I have not been in one of these, and as it's not under our purview, we have not necessarily gone in and done a full inventory. The the key to this one is looking at the intoxicating hemp, or really the hot hemp, as it's called, that is synthetic, which is illegal in the state. So they would really be looking at that. Again, happy to work with the assembly member on that amendment to take that particular statement out. This is really to go after the things that aren't tested, that are claiming to make people intoxicated. Nothing to do with any health benefits that have to do with some of these other hemp products.
Thank you so much for that, because I believe the committee would support an amendment that, of course, we don't want anything misidentifying as it has health value, but we don't want to have an unintentional consequence for those products that do and are properly labeled and sold under authority. And so I appreciate your willingness so
Thank you, Chair. James Hunt, for the record, we are in agreement on that.
thank you so much. Okay, with that, I see no additional questions, so I will go ahead and open it up for testimony of Assembly Bill 504. Please remember to state your name and spell it for the record.
Good morning, Chair Miller, Vice Chair Marzola, and members of the committee. My name is Driana Dimatulak. That's Dimatulac. I'm with Brownstein, representing Deep Roots Harvest in support of AB 504. Nevadans deserve full transparency when it comes to the products that they purchase and consume. This is why Deep Roots Harvest takes great care to comply with Nevada laws and regulations. In contrast, unlicensed hemp sellers can often mislead consumers by falsely representing themselves as licensed establishments and marketing their hemp products as cannabis, when hemp and cannabis differ significantly. Hemp contains less than 0.3% delta-9 THC, which is the primary chemical associated with intoxicating and psychoactive effects, while cannabis typically contains between 15% to 20%. Hemp and cannabis offer distinct uses, and it's crucial for consumers to know these differences to make informed choices about what they purchase. Allowing unlicensed hemp sellers to continue these deceptive practices not only puts consumers at risk, but also undermines the integrity of Nevada's regulated cannabis market. Licensed establishments have invested significant time and resources to comply with the law, and they should not have to compete with bad actors who operate outside of it. By increasing transparency and imposing penalties for deceptive practices, AB 504 protects consumers, supports legitimate businesses, and strengthens market integrity. For these reasons, we respectfully urge this committee to vote in favor of AB 504. Thank you.
Not seeing anyone else here in Carson, we'll go down to Las Vegas.
Good morning, Lake Martin, Executive Director of the Nevada Cannabis Association. First, our thanks to the Speaker, the committee, and Assemblymember Dahlia for bringing this bill. Fake dispensaries are a huge problem. As noted, they're operating in areas in the resort corridor and on Fremont Street under the canopy, and making themselves appear as if they are legal cannabis dispensaries. So requiring some signage and stopping them from making these false claims to lure in tourists who know that cannabis is legal in Nevada, but don't realize that they can't buy it on the Strip and on Fremont Street. And this is, again, a tremendous issue. They are selling not only either fake, non-intoxicating hemp products looking like cannabis flower, or they are selling highly potent THC hemp-derived products that are dangerous and untested. And both of those will be addressed through this bill. We also have a similar legislation in the Senate, SB 356, which will look at prohibiting these types of sales entirely. So thank you very much to the committee. We are in support.
And Ms. Martin, will you please spell your name for the record?
I'm so sorry. Thank you, Chair. Lake Martin, LAYKEMARTIN.
Thank you so much. Next.
Hello, Chair Miller, members of the committee. For the record, my name is Alyssa Naveworth. That's ALISA NAVE, N-A-V-E hyphen Worth, W-O-R-T-H, at Cornerstone Government Affairs on behalf of Planet 13. We echo the sentiments of the Cannabis Association as well as Deep Roots Harvest. Essentially, these establishments are taking advantage of a loophole in federal law and are selling products to Nevada consumers that appear to be cannabis products. These products are not only untested, they are dangerous to the public health and welfare and safety, but they're also not taxed at the same level that cannabis that is actually regulated and lawful is sold in Nevada. It's bad for Nevada consumers and it's bad for the state of Nevada. And we are grateful to the speaker and the assemblyman for taking the first step at trying to address this issue. And we urge your support of AB 504.
Thank you so much. Is there anyone else there in Carson City that would like to testify? In Las Vegas that would like to testify in support? Not seeing anyone? I will go ahead and open the lines for broadcasting. Please open the lines.
Thank you, Chair. There are no callers to provide testimony at this time.
Is there anyone else here in Carson City? Thank you so much for that. Anyone else here in Carson City?
Sorry, Chair. Thank you for.
Sorry for being late, Mr. Villasati. Okay,
Yeah,
go
no,
ahead.
I'm very sorry. It's tough getting down the hill this morning. Nick Vistaliatis for the record on behalf of the Nevada Resort Association. We thank the sponsors for bringing forth this bill. We are having issues on the Strip and in Fremont with these deceptive practices and, posting these things in the window and, misguiding tourists and locals. And so we appreciate bringing this bill forward and we support it. Thank you.
Would you also please spell your name for the record?
Vassiliadis. Thank you.
Thank you. We're just going by last name now? One name? Yeah, okay, sounds good. All right, thank you. And with that, we actually need to take a recess for a few moments because we're having some technical difficulties. So everyone just hang tight. You can speak, just don't leave the room. All right, everyone, we are going to resume our work. We are back up and running. And so with that, I know that we had taken testimony in support here in Carson and Las Vegas and the phones. So I will move to opposition testimony. Is there anyone here in Carson City that would like to oppose Assembly Bill 504? Anyone in Las Vegas? Broadcasting, will you open the lines?
Thank you, Chair. There are no callers to provide testimony at this time.
Thank you. Then I will open it up for testimony in neutral. Anyone here in Carson City? Anyone in Las Vegas? Broadcasting, anyone on the lines?
Thank you, Chair. There's still no callers choosing to testify at this time.
Thank you. Then with that, I will ask the Assembly member up. Do you have any final remarks? He is waiving the final remarks. Thank you so much. So I will go ahead and close Assembly Bill 504. With that, next on our agenda, we have Assembly Bill 503. I will open the hearing for 503. Assembly Bill 503 revises provisions relating to utility wire and brought an awful lot of people into our committee room that we never see. So thank you for that. With that, Assembly member, whenever you are ready, please introduce yourself and your co-presenters, and you may proceed when you are ready.
Thank you, Chair Miller and members of the Assembly Committee on Judiciary. I am Assemblymember Selena Torres-Fawcett, and I proudly represent Assembly District 3 in Las Vegas, Nevada. Today, I am also here as a chair of the Joint Interim Standing Committee on Government Affairs for the 23-24 legislatives. I apologize for the interim, which was the hardest working interim committee that we had. And this piece of legislation did come out of those conversations. And so for that reason, I'm here to present AB 503, which aims to address unlawful possession of utility wire. Joining me today is Mr. Hardy as well as Ms. Capurro, and they will provide some additional industry context and discuss the amendment with us, and they'll be here to help support with any questions as well. So just a little bit of background information. AB 503 is being introduced in response to a series of copper wire theft that has impacted Nevadans, and with the wrong set of circumstances, the consequences of copper wire theft can cause more than a disturbance to electricity in our households or a disruption in access to internet. It can also have life-threatening consequences. This bill was first discussed during the Interim Government Affairs Committee about a year ago, and is a culmination of over a year's work and the combined efforts of local governments, law enforcement, telecommunication companies, public utilities, and the scrap metal industry. Just a month ago, a serious incident occurred in February 2024 when a copper theft caused a massive outage at the Harry Reid International Airport in Las Vegas. This event highlighted the urgent need for stronger measures to combat copper wire theft and protect critical infrastructure. Following this incident, the Clark County Commission took swift action by passing a new ordinance prohibiting the purchase of scrap metal or 7-strand copper wire without an affidavit or lawful documentation. However, it is necessary to address this issue at the state level because only the legislature can create the kinds of criminal penalties that'll be a true deterrent to these crimes. And while I'm no copper wire expert, in my conversations with industry experts, it has been made very clear to me that this type of 7-strand copper wire is not something that a normal person would just be having in their household or a copper wire artist would be in possession of. This is very specific to utilities and utility wire. This measure is also based on the success of the catalytic converter law that we passed last legislative session. That legislation has virtually eliminated the theft of catalytic converters in Nevada and is now being looked at across the country as model legislation. Therefore, we have high confidence that AB 503 will effectively end the scourge of copper wire theft that has damaged our state and impacts everyday Nevada families way too frequently. This bill designates penalties of willfully and maliciously damaging critical infrastructure property, which includes any infrastructure used to transmit electricity to the public, such as power lines, traffic lights, and electrical substations. With the amendment language, it also adds those telecommunication providers, which are obviously like our cell towers, and oftentimes internet access. An amendment will be submitted to add that portion of the legislation. Copper wire thefts have far-reaching consequences. They leave neighborhoods literally in the dark and impose significant costs on taxpayers. Power outages caused by these thefts are increasingly common. They affect small business, schools, and the entertainment venues, particularly in Las Vegas. As an educator in East Las Vegas, I cannot count how many times we've had the power go out because of these copper wire thefts. And it really is a damage to the education that we provide. You can only do so much when most of our textbooks are online these days. And, you know, it really is a challenge to the small businesses that surround us that now are losing a day's worth of sales because of this outage. Worse than the cost is the danger that these thefts also present for residents. Tragically, in September 2023, a 7-year-old girl was hit and killed in a crosswalk when street lights were out due to copper wire theft. Just a couple months ago, I was reached out to some residents in East Las Vegas that are educators, and they reached out to me because their street lights had been out for weeks. My street lights in Las Vegas have been out for weeks, and it's because these copper wire thefts are happening so quickly that it's hard for local governments to address these issues as they're occurring, because as soon as they put in a new one, these thieves are back and they're getting more copper and they're doing the same thing and they're stealing that copper. So at this time, I'm going to go ahead and walk through the bill and then I'll pass it on to my co-presenters to kind of address some of the amendment language and the impact of this bill. Section 1 establishes penalties for willfully removing, damaging, or destroying any critical electrical infrastructure to obtain used utility wire. The amendment also includes tempering. The severity of this penalty is dependent on the value of the property affected and whether the act caused an interruption to service. The penalties include if the property is less than $500, a person is guilty of a misdemeanor, $500 or more, and the person is guilty of a Category D felony with a prison term of not less than 1 year and not more than 4 years and a fine of not more than $5,000. And if it causes an interruption to services provided by any critical electrical infrastructure, a person is guilty of a Category C felony with a prison term of not less than 1 year and a maximum term of not more than 5 years and a fine of not more than $10,000. Section 3 makes it unlawful for a person to possess used utility wire unless the person falls under specific categories such as operating a disposal site, holding an electrical contractor's license, or being a licensed scrap metal processor. Section 4 prohibits the purchase of used utility wire unless it is from authorized entities or individuals with proper documentation. Section 5 outlines the penalties for violating Section 3 and 4, ranging from a misdemeanor to a Category D felony, depending on the value of the wire involved. Sections 8 through 10 establish requirements for scrap metal processors regarding the purchase, record keeping of transactions, and method of payment for purchasing used utility wire. And Section 16 requires scrap metal processors to submit information electronically to local law enforcement agencies about purchase of used utility wire. I understand that we're open to having a conversation about some of the penalties that are described herein, but obviously this legislative process moves quickly, and so I look forward to having that conversation the next couple days with the public defenders. But at this time, I'll go ahead and pass it off so that they can go through the amendment.
Thank you, Chair Warren Hardy, Warren Hardy, today representing the Urban Consortium, also SA Recycling, Champion Recycling, and I do want to give a shout out to Las Vegas Recycling, who I don't represent, but who has been a great partner in this. This is a piece of legislation that the Urban Consortium brought to the chair during the interim, and we appreciate her and the committee's openness and willingness to look at this. This has been an ongoing problem in Southern Nevada, and we have actually adopted ordinances at Clark County, Las Vegas, North Las Vegas, and Henderson to deal with this. But it became evident after the success of the catalytic converter law that the key to this was stricter penalties. We understand the concern and the reluctance to provide felonies on a lot of different things. That's why this legislation is very, very narrow, in our opinion, to 7-strand wire, which, as the chair indicated, is the wire that is being stolen and sought after by thieves. So that's my introduction. I would indicate that there is one amendment that we have. I know Ms. Capurro has an amendment as well to clarify her section of the bill, and we appreciate her for coming forward and supporting this bill and bringing the concept and the idea of critical infrastructure, because that's going to be important. The change I suggest is in the amendment before you is requested change 2. simply really a matter of process. It's a little confusing that Section 3C references the catalytic converter law specifically, and we think it might be cleaner if we pull out and just delineate those sections that apply to metal theft, because there are requirements in the catalytic converter law that we require vehicle identification numbers, make, model of vehicles, that don't apply here. I will say this. What I handed LCB at the last minute when this bill was kind of a mess, and I'm really amazed that LCB did such a remarkable job of getting this bill substantially right. So that's the only request we have. It's not a substantive change, just a cleanup so those that are required to live by this bill can understand it better. So let's confirm.
Good morning, Chair Miller and committee. For the record, Shelley Capurro, representing Charter Communications Spectrum. And I want to thank you for the opportunity of assisting in the presentation of this bill. So critical infrastructure such as telecommunications systems does serve as the backbone of our daily lives. These systems provide essential services that keep our communities connected, businesses operating, and families safe. When intentional damage occurs, the impacts are devastating and far-reaching. The financial costs to taxpayers and businesses are unsurmountable. We don't know how often this occurs. We know when it hits the headlines, and that's the problem. We don't know how often all of this is occurring. The other thing I want to bring up before I get to the amendment is that sometimes these acts are more dangerous to the perpetrators than a typical stealing of a cell phone, a laptop, etc. Them tampering with high voltage electricity systems and hazardous waste can cause them, injury or death. In the amendment, in sections 1.1, 1.2, and 1.3, we are adding in tampers with, because that, it's not theft, but it's tampering with, and it can be, catastrophic. Also, we would like the name to actually be called critical infrastructure property of this definition, because we feel it's more fitting. And in that definition, we are asking for the following things to be added to the already existing definition that's in the bill. We'd like to add video service, broadband service, telecommunication service, fiber telephone service, wireless telephone service, natural gas, water, sewer, stormwater collection, disposable services, so that it just encompasses what we would consider critical infrastructure.
Thank you. At this time, I'm open to any questions.
Thank you so much for your presentation. With that, we will begin questioning with Assemblymember Roth.
Thank you so much, Chair, and thank you so much for the presentation and bringing this piece of legislation forward. I just want some points of clarity. I know with the catalytic converter bill that was worked on last session, one of the main pieces of that was really going after the businesses who were selling the catalytic converters. And so I want to make sure that this bill is reaching that same kind of conclusion of trying to go after who's actually selling them.
Thank you, Chair. Warren Hardy. That's a great question. And part of the reason the catalytic converter law was successful is that we had done some groundwork. In fact, that I know of on the catalytic converter law, none of my clients accepted used catalytic converters as a matter of business practice. The challenge we had with the catalytic converter is the same thing we're having now with utility wire. Catalytic converters were being stolen and taken out of state. So they weren't bringing them to us. My client was the subject of a sting where we turned it away and said we don't buy catalytic converters. And most scrap metal companies had that policy. The problem was they weren't taking it to us. The bad guys pretty quickly figured out that we weren't buying them, so they started to take them, ironically, to California, Arizona, and Utah, where they didn't have as strict a law. So the key to the success of that bill was that the possession of a catalytic converter was made a crime, 2 or more catalytic converters. There's no reason on earth why somebody should have more than 2 catalytic converters. There's really no reason on earth that they should have more than 1. And probably no reason they should even have 1. So the fact that the possession of it was made against the law enabled law enforcement, if somebody had 5 catalytic converters in their car or in their truck on the way to California, that was the crime that they were charged with. We are now seeing catalytic converters showing up in dumpsters and drop boxes because they're completely worthless as an instrument of crime. So the work has already been done. We have been working for years. If you look at the statute regarding scrap metal, much of it is laws that my client helped put in the law 15, 20 years ago that requires the business to get identification. If you bring any kind of scrap metal to SA Recycling, my client, you will be required to show your driver's license, will be required to get your vehicle license plate number, you have to give a fingerprint, and there's just a bunch of different requirements, so bad guys don't bring this stuff to us. And that's really what we're seeing, is that these things are being taken out of state. Now, the problem with the catalytic converter was you had to catch them in the act before you can charge them with a crime. Now, if the possession, it's exactly the same thing we're trying to accomplish here. Today, you have to catch somebody in the act of stealing the wire before you can charge them with a crime. Under this law, for that very narrow definition of scrap, of 7-strand utility wire, which is the wire that's being targeted, law enforcement will be able to charge you with a crime for the possession. Difference between catalytic converter and this, there's really no reason somebody should have a catalytic converter. There are some reasons why a normal individual would have the 7-strand wire, which is why in the ordinances and in the law we have said you have to be able to demonstrate that you legally own it, or you have to sign an affidavit that says you legally possess it. So that's how it ties together and how the industry is involved.
Thank you for that. So could you explain the gap in the current law then? It seems to me that you could currently be charged with possession of stolen property, burglary, destruction of property. So where is the gap in the enforcement now?
Thank you, Chair Warren Hardy. So you currently can charge on a catalytic converter for the possession of stolen material. In this case, you cannot. In the case of 7-strand copper wire, used utility wire, you cannot. That's what we're trying to accomplish here. So in order to charge somebody with a penalty under the current law, you have to catch them in the act of stealing the wire. This would make it so under certain circumstances, unless you can demonstrate that you legally acquired that used utility wire, you could be charged with a crime for possessing it. It's a unique structure, Madam Chair. I'll acknowledge that. That's why we've tried to make it as narrow as possible to the destruction. And in the case of the utility, or excuse me, in the case of the critical infrastructure, stuff's not being stolen there. They are maliciously, and they're just cutting it off. They're cutting it to disrupt wire. They're cutting it to disrupt service at the airport. They're not stealing it. So this bill really covers two very important components for this issue in in Nevada.
We'll move on and see if we need to come back. Thank you for that. Not many of us are experts in this field. But you just said something that's interesting, that people are literally doing this just to be destructive. I mean, I understand the motive of stealing to obtain money, which for the most part with the catalytic converter, you steal it, you sell it, you get money. You're saying people are just doing this just for the sake of destruction?
Chair Miller, Shelley Capurro for the record. Yes, we have like the story. There's actually an example in Sacramento, California last year, April 18th. It was found in the investigation that it was an intentional and deliberate fiber cut, which led to the airport outage, which then led to flight delays for hours. That was not Charter Fiber. That actually was another, fellow company. But this is increasing across the country, these intentional disruptions. And what happens is you can have a hospital affected, like the assembly member said, a school affected. You can have emergency responders affected. It is, and a lot of times it's just an intentional damage and sometimes they're doing it actually they think they can get copper wire. So sometimes that is linked in there, but sometimes it's just intentional disruption.
And Chair Warren Hardy, just to be, yeah, so Chair Warren Hardy, just to clarify, it's a little confusing because this bill really, in some way, is dealing with two very separate and distinct actions. The one that Ms. Capurro describes is an intentional act. There's no value in the fiber wire that they have. Our guys don't purchase it, at least I'm not aware that they do. So those are just intentional, trying to cause mischief, trying to shut down the airport, trying to shut down Allegiant Stadium. In the case of Sacramento, trying to shut down the legislature. So that is separate. On the copper wire theft side, I'm unaware of anybody that does it just to be mischievous. On the copper wire side, people are stealing it because it has value and they want to resell it. So just to clarify, there's two real distinct portions to this legislation.
Thank you so much. Our next question is from Assemblymember Cole.
Thank you very much for addressing this really, really important issue. My question for you is this the 7-strand wire, is it the same kind of wire that's used in the air conditioning, condensing units, that kind of thing, or is it different?
Thank you, Chair. That's an excellent question. It is very similar. 7-strand copper wire is used in residential applications, which is why we've had to set up the provision that says you can establish that you legally are authorized to possess the material. Because there are legitimate reasons why a homeowner might be doing a renovation of their house and has some of this wire. The inclusion of the word used utility wire, I think helps us get closer. And again, as I said, we're really trying to narrow this because we understand the hesitancy to increase penalties. So we're really trying to narrow this down. So that's the reason. In the catalytic converter law, it just says you can't have it. Doesn't matter. It doesn't matter the circumstances. In this case, it says you have to establish you legally own it, or you have to sign an affidavit saying that you do. And that's the reason for that. It is available.
Assemblymember Torres Fawcett for the record. And to give a little bit of clarity to this section, to the amount of used 7-strand utility wire that you're going to have from an air conditioning unit at your home is going to be very different than somebody who's actively going out and getting large amounts, stealing large amounts of the 7-strand utility copper wire, right? Like those are two very different circumstances. And I think that, an individual working at one of these plants would also be able to very quickly tell the difference unless you're providing HVAC services for multiple units at a time, in which case you would be qualified as an individual that could then hand this type of equipment over. Now that's different than a person stealing all of that copper wire from HVAC units across the state.
Just quick. And that was really what my point was. I just wanted to make sure that it did include that because there have been a lot of businesses, specifically on the Strip and the Fremont corridor area, that were affected by this just last summer. And so I want to make sure that thefts of that kind of wire is wrapped up in this. Awesome. Thank you.
Assemblymember Torres Fawcett for the record, yes, that's definitely included. And then also that type of commercial HVAC unit, that has obviously quite a bit more wire than my unit at home, right? And so they would definitely be captured within this.
Thank you. Our next question is from Assemblymember Ordlicker.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for addressing this concern because it's probably the one I hear the most from my constituents. And getting their street lights back up is now measured not so much in weeks or months, but I think it's crossing into years. Is there anything we can do? I know that it's costly to do the replacements and their budget's tight at the local level, but is there something we can do to speed up the replacement for our constituents?
Thank you, Chair. Warren Hardy. That's a great question. And one of the provisions in this bill that makes it so effective is when you determine the penalties, the cost of damage that you've done and the cost of replacement is included in the price of the expense of the crime, which is critical. We have had great success, and I think you have to have some context with what we've already been doing as an industry with local governments. We have I call it a task force. Metro doesn't like that because that means something specific. We have a working group that meets every month. We have an online program in real time. So if somebody the pizza shop, for example, had theft, they could notify Metro within seconds. That is on the radar screen of all the scrap metal processors in Nevada. And you may have read about the major bust that was done at the Fontainebleau a year or so ago. That was a result of this process we have with law enforcement. That this individual was somebody that was well known to the processor, and he would bring metal in because his employer authorized him to take it in and get the bonus of having the money that came from the recycling. Well, he got fired by that company, but went on bringing scrap metal in for 6 or 7 months until Metropolitan Police Department put his picture on our website. One of our members said, yeah, that guy's been coming in for 6 months. And by the way, here's his driver's license, his fingerprint, his car, his driver's license number, and the amount of stuff he's brought in since he was fired. They were able to make an arrest in that case. So I give you that background to answer your question, that there are things being done in the background to expedite this. This is what we need from the legislature to be able to deal with this.
Assemblymember Torres Fawcett for the record. And while there might be some good actors that are providing this right now, I think it's important to note that not all scrap metal processing centers right now are doing this work. They're not tracking this information. And so this puts it into statute and requires that they're doing that. And, I'm happy to discuss, to Assemblymember Roth's question earlier, I'm happy to discuss what a penalty for those bad actors looks like, right? Because this is something that they should be doing because it makes sure that Nevadans are safe, and it prevents this. It allows for law enforcement to track it a lot easier, right? And so to the point that you made earlier, I'm happy to discuss what that might look like.
Thank you. Our next question is from Assemblymember LaRue Hatch.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for presenting this morning. So I just want some clarification. I assume it is already illegal to destroy public property and to possess stolen property, right? So how does this step up, or how is this a change from what is currently in statute?
I was actually touching base with legal on this this morning. Oh, sorry, Shelley Capro for the record. And in what we've seen, it's typically more like a misdemeanor, and then we're increasing that to a felony. But again, there's levels within the bill depending on the amount. Does that help clarify that? Okay.
No, I appreciate that. Thank you. And I'm wondering, is your bill also adding in these penalties now for the bad actors that are purchasing this? Was that not in statute, like the scrap metal processors that were not keeping this documentation and all of those other requirements?
Thank you, Chair. Warren Hardy. There are strict requirements in law already for scrap metal processors that receive this. What there is not is the very specific extra requirements on utility wire. That's what is increased by this legislation. So yeah, we have pretty strict requirements to the point that most things that are questionable, it's not even worth our time, effort, or resources to accept. And right now, the way it works now with all the major processors, and the chair is exactly right. One of the challenges we have are not with the licensed recyclers, with the unlicensed folks that are, you can go online on Facebook or anywhere else, they'll say, we buy this wire, no questions asked. We buy cars without titles, all of which is against the law. The challenge is the penalties are so limited that it's almost to the point where these bad actors say, look, just keep my credit card on file, and when you need to find me for that misdemeanor, go ahead and find me. It's just not significant enough to stop it. But there are significant laws in place right now. As I indicated earlier, we have to get fingerprints. We have to identify the individual, get their driver's. We're not allowed to pay them cash over $250. It has to be a check or electronic transfer. And then the other thing we'll say is we immediately notify Metro when we see something that's at all suspicious, and we'll set it aside until Metro comes and clears it and lets us know it's okay to process. So, and that's based on the current law with regard to scrap metal processing. There are significant requirements in current law.
Thank you. Our next question is from Assemblymember Gray.
Good morning. I'm just a little concerned. You had me, and you haven't lost me yet, but just the mere possession of it without even knowing if there's a crime to tie them to, much less they committed the crime, that kind of goes contrary to our, guilty, innocent until proven guilty. I mean, really concerns me. How do you address that?
Thank you, Chair Warren Hardy. I don't disagree. But there are certain penalties that are necessary to be in order to put a stop to this stuff. And right now, the level of penalty, again, this is why we have very narrowly defined it. Now, I will say this, under the law, all you have to do to be able to sell it, I can tell you, my guys probably won't purchase it with this, but all you have to do to sell it is sign an affidavit saying you legally possessed it. Then that gives law enforcement the ability to go back and do additional research, and if it is proven that you stole it from a location, then the penalties can be enhanced. One of the things you'll notice we put in the bill was one of the ways you can identify legal wire is if it is identified, if it has identifying marks on it. One of the things we're encouraging local governments to do is to put in their bids identifying wire. So it would be identified as belonging to Clark County or identifying as belonging to the city of North Las Vegas. And that would make law enforcement's jobs easier. The way we've dealt with that in the past is most of the current language and legislation here related to burning copper wire. That's the method that people use if they're bad actors. If you're not a bad actor, you're not going to burn the wire. You're going to bring it in because it belongs to you. So it is difficult. But again, we feel like if you're willing to sign an affidavit that says you legally possess the thing, then that is under the new statute or the proposed statute, that is evidence that you own it legally.
Thank you so much. Next question is from Assemblymember Gonzalez.
Thank you so much, Chair. You're good. Good morning. Thank you so much for being here and for your presentation. A lot of the conversation has been specific to Clark County, so I was just wondering if this issue is happening in other places throughout the state.
Thank you, Chair Warren Hardy. Happily, we're not getting a lot of reports in other areas of the state that this is happening. But again, this would be preemption against it happening. It's a scourge in southern Nevada, though. It is epidemic. No. Yeah.
Epidemic, yes. Thank you. I believe we have one final question. We're returning back to Assemblymember LaRue Hatch.
Thank you so much, Chair, for the second shot. So my question is just on the exemptions for people that are allowed to have this wire. I'm looking at page 4. It says people that hold a permit issued to NRS, people that have a contractor's license. I'm just wondering, do the folks that are working for the contractor have that license, and are they covered, or does that only apply to the person at the top that owns the business?
Thank you, Chair. That is a great question, and one that has come up, because a lot of times what will happen is an electrical company will give an employee the opportunity, just sort of as a bonus, to take all this scrap down and trade it in and keep the value of that happens all the time in the industry. And we really grappled with that in the local ordinances. So what happens in practice is if you work for XYZ Electric and you're a journeyman and your boss says, go ahead and take it and get the value, he'll give you a letter that says, we authorize Joe to take this, and he'll bring it in. That works as verification that he's authorized to hold it. In most cases, the good actors in the industry have relationships with those businesses, and we will know those individuals. And there are business-to-business exemptions in the local ordinance as well as here that allow us to do that. But that's a great question, because that's what happens most of the time. It's the employer allowing one of their good employees to take it and get the extra benefit. And it is covered under this.
Thank you. And with that, we will go ahead and open it up for testimony in support. Starting here in Carson City, anyone that would like to testify in support of Assembly Bill 503.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members of the committee. For the record, my name is Paige Barnes with the Frado Company. Here this morning on behalf of Lumen, we are here.
Please spell your name.
Apologies.
Thank you.
Paige Barnes, Paigebarnes. We are here in support of AB 503, tampering and destruction of critical utility infrastructure and telecom wires disrupts essential services, including calls to 911. Disruption of services interferes with business practices and jeopardizes lives. Stricter penalties aim to safeguard the essential infrastructure and ensure reliable telecom services. We urge your support and passage of AB 503.
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the committee. Mo Dennis, M-O-D-E-N-I-S, representing Las Vegas Recycling. We are in support of AB 503 and the amendment. We have been participating with Metro in the work group for the past several years. But we have noticed a huge, especially impact on the east side of Las Vegas with the lights, the copper being stolen, and it takes months to replace. The reason it takes so long, as we worked with the city, is that they just have so many of them for them to keep up with not only the copper theft, but then just the maintenance. And so we think this is a critical issue and urge support. Thank you.
Good morning, Chair, committee members. Adrian Hunt, ADRIANHUNT, representing Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department. We support this bill greatly. It supports pretty much our Theft Crimes Bureau tremendously by addressing the challenges officers face in deterring utility wire theft. We urge the committee to advance this bill forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. For the record, my name is Terry Graves, representing today Western Metals Recycling, Nevada Trucking Association, Nevada Manufacturing Association. Having worked in this for several years, just generally legitimate licensed scrap metal processors already have a policy of only purchasing from known businesses. They do not purchase from off the street or walk-in clients. I'd just like to point out the feature about damages. Sometimes these thefts result in $300 worth of copper, but result in $10,000 worth of damages to repair what was taken. So that's an important aspect of this. Again, with regard to manufacturing and trucking, any disruption of public services also disrupts their business. Probably true of most businesses, and they are also in support of this bill. Again, I will continue to work with the sponsors to bring this bill to final form, but we fully support it and the amendments that have been recommended also. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And can you spell your name for the record, please?
Terry Graves, that's Terry and Graves.
Thank you.
Good morning, Chair Miller, Vice Chair Marzola, and members of the committee. For the record, my name is Chloe Chisholm. That's CHLOECHISM, here from NV Energy to express our strong support for Assembly Bill 503. Copper wire theft is not a victimless crime. Each time it is stolen from our infrastructure, Nevadans pay the price through power outages, public safety risks, and increased operational costs that ultimately affect our customers. Assembly Bill 503 takes meaningful steps to deter this criminal behavior by creating clear penalties and tightening oversight around the possession, sale, and purchase of used utility wire. NV Energy has seen this issue escalate. In 2023 alone, we recorded 19 outages caused by copper theft, nearly one every 2 weeks. A major incident at Harry Reid International Airport earlier this year disrupted operations and thousands of travelers. On average, we've experienced over 10 copper-related outages per year, and many more likely go unreported if those don't result in immediate service interruptions. These thefts impact more than just equipment. They threaten public safety and divert resources away from maintaining and improving our systems. These crews often respond urgently, and these costs can add up very quickly. In closing, AB 503 offers a practical solution. It balances enforcement with reasonable protections for legitimate businesses, aligns wire sales with existing laws on catalytic converters, and gives law enforcement better tools to prevent repeat offenses. So we appreciate the legislature's leadership on this issue, and we respectfully urge your support. Thank you for your time.
Good morning, Chair Miller and members of the committee. For the record, Trevor Parrish, TREVORPARRISH, with the Vegas Chamber. The Chamber is in support of AB 503 and agrees with the premise of the bill and the policy objective to deter the illegal removal of utility wire from public infrastructure. The removal of such wiring, as you know, causes a significant public safety issue for both residents and businesses in our community. The theft of the utility wire can be found throughout the community, and the cost and time to repair is time-consuming and costly. We believe this bill will further strengthen efforts to deter the illegal wire removal, and which will help serve our community. We appreciate the stakeholders' efforts in coming together to develop what we believe is a fair and practical policy. Thank you for your time.
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the committee. My name is Helen Foley, HELEN-FOLEY, and today I am representing T-Mobile. We really appreciate the sponsor of the bill, Warren Hardy, as well as Shelley Capurro, for expanding this a bit outside of the copper wire setting. There's a new amendment, which is the critical infrastructure property. We want to make sure that this also includes the batteries. We have large vaults underneath our cell sites that includes a big backup battery. So if something happens to the electricity from a fire or whatever, there will still be wireless service for an extended period of time because of those batteries. So we want to make sure that that's included, but we think this is a fantastic bill, and we thank you for considering it.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair and members of the committee. For the record, my name is Omar Salcedo. It's OMAR SAUCEDO, and I'm testifying here today on behalf of AT&T. First, I want to echo my thanks also as well to Assembly Member Torres for bringing this critical piece of legislation here today. And I also want to echo the comments of my colleague at T-Mobile and at Lumen. We at AT&T, we've seen a large amount of theft nationally on our copper wired. It's becoming a pretty serious issue for us. And unfortunately for us, we don't have the time, like local governments, to repair these wires. Our consumers depend on internet connectivity. They depend on wireless communications. So when that copper is stolen or that wiring is stolen and we do not have the ability to have our consumers make those phone calls, we lose customers. It's important for us to make sure that we continue to serve the customers that we serve. The last thing we want to do is lose customers because they think that we're unreliable, and we've seen it. As frequently as last year during Thanksgiving, we had an outage in Pahrump. I was in communication with the assembly member out there, letting them know that we were trying to restore service as quickly as possible. But these things happen quite frequently, and we want to make sure that we're ahead of it. So we are in full support of the deterrence. We need to make sure that folks are aware that if they're going to be impacting our critical infrastructure, that there should be a deterrent for that theft. Thank you for your time.
Good morning, Chair Miller, members of the committee. Jason Walker, JASONWALKER, representing the Washoe County Sheriff's Office. Echoing the comments from all the previous testimony, and just for Washoe County, we have had multiple instances of destruction of property, uncertain if it is for this specific wire. But again, supporting this bill, it's in direct alignment with what we were able to accomplish with the catalytic converter law.
Good morning, Chair Miller and members of the committee. Carrie Kramer here on behalf of NAIOP, that's KERRIEKRAMER, here in support of this bill. We'd like to thank the sponsors. Thank you.
Good morning, Chair Miller and members of the committee. Donna Laffey, DONNALAFFEY, with Ferrari Reader Public Affairs here on behalf of Verizon. Verizon is supportive of AB 503 with the amendment, and we just want to echo all the comments of our colleagues in the telecommunications industry. We really request that you support this because we need protection for our critical infrastructure that we provide. Thank you.
Good morning, Chair Miller and committee members. I'm Joe Harrington, the Communications Director for NDOT. That's JOEHARRINGTON. We are also in support of Assembly Bill 503, in addition to the many safety hazards you heard about, lighting outages, disruption to traffic control devices. I did want to put on the record this has become a significant drain on the state highway fund. We are currently spending about $5 million a biennium to address copper theft here in the state of Nevada. To address some of the questions that were presented earlier, it is about a 4-to-1 Clark County issue, but we are seeing it in other areas of the state. And I should specify the $5 million, that is just on NDOT right-of-way. We are also supportive in concept of the amendment. We are seeing individuals who are trying to dig up copper wire. They find fiber instead. They're frustrated, they vandalize it. It actually costs us more to replace than the copper. So including that vandalism component, we think is also a great idea. Again, we are in support of Assembly Bill 503. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Chair Miller, members of the Assembly Judiciary Committee. My name is John Jones here on behalf of the Nevada District Attorneys Association in support of AB 503. We want to thank Assemblymember Torres Fawcett for bringing the bill. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair, members of the committee. For the record, Mike Cathcart, M-I-K-E-C-A-T-H-C-A-R-T, representing the city of Henderson. I just want to thank the sponsor and all the stakeholders for bringing this legislation. Copper wire theft is an issue in Henderson, just like all the other local governments in Southern Nevada. We are very supportive of AB 503 and believe it is a step forward in solving this issue. Thank you.
Good morning, Chair, members of the committee. Jill Hinksman, J-I-L-L, last name H-I-N-X-M-A-N, here with the Ferraro Group on behalf of Cox Communications. We are in support of the bill and the proposed amendment. Thank you.
Good morning, Chair Miller and members of the committee. My name is Jeff Rogan, J-E-F-F-R-O-G-A-N, and I'm here on behalf of Clark County in support of AB 503. The Clark County streetlight network has been under attack from copper wire thieves since 2007. Some statistics I think might help you understand the scope of the problem. From January of 2022 to January of 2025, over 650,000 linear feet of copper wire has been stolen from county streetlights from 850 separate locations. As of January of this year, 562 of those locations were repaired, costing the county over $1.8 million. In January, the county also estimated that the cost to repair the remaining locations would range from an additional $1.8 million to nearly $2.1 million. AB 503 will help out with our efforts at the local level that you heard about in the testimony today. It rightly punishes with a felony offense those persons who unlawfully steal or possess copper wire in excess of $500. And like our local ordinances, the bill also attempts to curtail the secondary market for stolen wire by imposing reasonable duties on businesses which purchase scrap metal. We greatly thank the Assemblywoman for carrying this legislation, and we urge its passage today.
Thank you, Chair, members of the committee. For the record, Kelly Crompton, K-E-L-L-Y-C-R-O-M-P-T-O-N. I'll be brief to just say that we are in support of the bill. We echo many of the comments that the other jurisdictions have provided. And over the past 2 years, we have seen over $1 million worth of damage to roadway lighting, copper wire theft. And so we urge the support of this bill. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I feel like everyone in Carson pretty much has testified, right? Is there anyone there in Las Vegas that would like to testify in support? Not seeing anyone. Broadcasting, will you open the lines, please?
Thank you, Chair. There are no callers to provide testimony at this time.
Thank you. Then I will open it up for opposition testimony beginning here in Carson City.
Good morning, Chair Miller, members of the Assembly Judiciary. Paloma Guerrero, P-A-L-O-M-A-G-U-E-R-R-E-R-O, on behalf of the Clark County Public Defender's Office. I want to thank Assemblywoman Torres Fawcett for just opening up a conversation with us, and we look forward to working with the sponsors to find a solution that works for everybody. I do want to push against one thing, and that's that currently there's not a mechanism to go after these bad actors. That they just get a theft misdemeanor. I personally was representing somebody that was accused of this crime last year, and I looked up the criminal complaint, and they were charged with malicious destruction of property, a C felony, and theft, a B felony. When we're talking about these copper wire cases or utility wire cases, that they're really expensive. So a $500 limit for misdemeanor is a really, really low threshold. And not only is the wire expensive, the units that they're in are also expensive because they're also being charged for restitution for the destruction of those units. So the amount of money that it would take to fix these units and to replace the wire already elevates it to those felony thresholds currently. Thank you.
Good morning, Angela Knott from the Washoe County Public Defender's Office. Like Clark County, we are looking forward to working with the Assembly member and the sponsor on this bill. Just a few quick things. One, I've also know of a case in Washoe County. We don't get very many of them, so there's only one and it stood out. And he didn't actually get any of the copper wire, but what he had was a backpack with what they called possession of burglary tools. So, and he went into an abandoned building, and so he was charged with burglary, which is a Category B felony, and possession of burglary tools, which is a gross misdemeanor. So there already have, there's already mechanisms to be charging felonies for these crimes, even attempting to get to these copper wires. Specifically, I also want to quickly discuss the mandatory community service on top of any kind of prison time or jail time. I find it very difficult, and I'm not sure how the courts would do it, to mandate community service if you've already served your prison time. I could see it in lieu of prison time. You can have to do the community service, while you're out. But when you do the prison time, the courts really don't have the power to watch over you to make sure that you do the community service. So this is just one area that we have spoken with Assemblywoman on discussing further. Lastly, when I was listening to the presentation, it looked like one of the biggest issues was just adding, and I think it would be reasonable just to add the used utility wire to the scrap metal statute. And I think based on what we heard of that took care of the catalytic converter. It's, cleaning up the scrap metal issues. So I think just adding that to the already existing statute would maybe solve a lot of the issues that we're already seeing. So with that, thank you.
Thank you so much. And Chair Torres Fawcett has assured me that she plans to continue to work with y'all. Any other opposition testimony here? Is there anyone in Las Vegas? Broadcasting, will you open the lines, please?
Thank you, Chair. There are no callers to provide testimony at this time.
Thank you. Then I will go ahead and open it up for neutral testimony here in Carson City. Not seeing anyone here or in Las Vegas. Broadcasting, will you open the lines?
Thank you, Chair. There are still no callers to provide testimony at this time.
Thank you so much. Then I will welcome the presenters back up for any, and they do not have anything else to say. So with that, thank you so much. I will go ahead and close the hearing on Assembly Bill 503. It was good seeing y'all. See y'all in Commerce. See you later. With that, I think I already closed the hearing on Assembly Bill 503. Our last item of business today is public comment. Again, just a reminder, public comment is not to make remarks pertaining to any bills we heard today, but on any other issues that fall under the purview of this committee. So starting here in Carson City first, anyone wishing to make public comment? Not seeing anyone. Not seeing anyone in Las Vegas. Broadcasting, will you open the lines?
Chair, the public lines are open and working. However, there are no callers at this time.
Thank you so much. Then with that, I will close public comment and adjourn this meeting. I will see you all at 8 a.m. tomorrow morning.